Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Are you ready?
Ooh, I like to get it on.
Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here. We're scheduled to have Jeff Jarrett here in the second hour, and we're awaiting confirmation of that as we speak. So I just want to let you know that. Not the most newsworthy week in wrestling as compared to some of the weeks we've had. A lot of fallout still over the death of Elizabeth Hewlett and the arrest of Lex Luger. Last night in Confidential, they played the 911 call, which was quite chilling. Don't you think, Brian?
I would say so.
I didn't expect that.
No.
A lot of people are pretty upset about the Confidential piece, but aside from the fact that Vince McMahon kind of did a backhand comment about how here in WWF we're family and in WCW they were just commodities. Aside from that, I didn't really have a problem with it because it wasn't like there was anything that they said that wasn't factual or reported elsewhere, other than it was sort of tacky to that big graphic on the screen that said homicide when we all know it was not a homicide.
Yeah. I think the thing with me was I think it would have been better if they just would have gotten all the news stuff out of the way and played the 911 call and got all that stuff done and then did the tribute and then did the rest of the show. Instead, it was like every commercial was, we're going to play the 911 call, but just wait, we're going to play that a little bit later. And total pathetic ratings grab. And I don't know. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But
well, you're right. But, to me, see, I've watched so many news shows. When you watch the news show and they do that all through the news show.
I hate the news shows too. If that makes sense.
Okay, that's the reason why I can't be. I understand, and it was being exploitive at the same time. It was just like a news show, except for some of the comments. I actually thought that Hogan, out of all the people, was the only one who kind of knew the story. I think everybody else was kind of in a, I don't want to say fantasy land, but they just, they weren't there.
And blaming WCW, that was a little fantasy landish.
Oh yeah. WWE was in England this week. We had a couple of matches. Raw on Monday. Very strange lack of wrestling show. And they announced Triple H and Kevin Nash. And of course, then we got Brock Lesnar and Big Show in a stretcher match. It's going to be quite the pay-per-view next Sunday.
Especially because I think Kevin Nash is going to win.
Wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to head to a break right now. If you want to join in, you can join us at 1-800-877-PLAY. Although there are no lines available right now, we're going to start getting phone calls in just a second. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here on Mother's Day. Did you do anything nice for your mother today?
Did you do anything what?
Nice for your mother today?
Yeah, I got her flowers.
Well, that was nice.
And my grandmother.
Well, she helps you a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, anyway.
We had a fun Kentucky Fried Chicken celebration.
What did you eat?
Yeah, I ate.
Oh, man, today, well, this has anything to do with anything. I went to this fancy restaurant for breakfast, and I was like the only person eating healthy, right? Out of everyone there, right? So there was no problem, except that they screwed up my order, and I was just a nice guy and didn't make a scene.
That's good. It's Mother's Day.
That's right. But if I had
days to eat, today was one of them.
That's right. But had I been uptight, tightly wound, all chemicaled up, like a professional wrestler, it would have been a bad scene.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, this was, I gotta say though, now, like having said what we've said about the confidential piece, I'm stunned that they mentioned on the air that, one of the indictments had to do with, trafficking.
Did they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They said it with intent to distribute on the growth hormone.
Oh, I kind of missed that part.
Oh, yeah. It was quite,
well, it's true.
It's true. Just quite weird.
If they would have actually said the word steroids.
They did say the word steroids.
I thought they just said controlled substances.
No. When they showed, they said steroids later.
Oh, that's right, because they actually had the basis of growth hormone.
That's right. They had controlled substances in the first part of the piece. In the second piece, they said steroids.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting as well. But nothing that wasn't true. We're gonna see if there's anything else about as far as the news goes this week. I don't know. I was just like so unimpressed by Raw and SmackDown. Raw, the Steve Austin, Eric Bischoff stuff. It's like we've done it, and God, that's all they did. There was very little wrestling. SmackDown had more wrestling, and I didn't like hate SmackDown, but it was just it was like this train going nowhere.
Yeah. I wish that the Hulk Hogan thing was more mid-card than I know it's going to end up being, because there's something about it that I just enjoy so much.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it except it just overwhelms everything on the show.
Yeah, it's gonna be a main event feud.
Well, it's not even. You know what though? As far as I know, they're not even wrestling on the pay-per-view. So all they've done is bury the guys that are on the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
because it's like the whole show. I mean, the whole show is just Mr. America Hulk. That's all they build around. That and save on Tori Wilson, who are at least on the pay-per-view, but I don't know. I mean, it's just same old, an excuse to get,
There's a major lack of direction.
This later.
Well, maybe Vince has his own little direction that he's got in his brain, but...
No, he doesn't, because if there was, he would be building towards it.
Well, he's got his direction in his mind for his own stuff.
I'm just talking about, company at large building people up and stuff like that.
There's no concern about that.
Yeah,
because these guys don't make any money. It's him and Hogan.
They don't make any money either.
Oh, come on. They drew WrestleMania.
That's right.
Bullet showed up.
That's right. First of all, that was sold out before anyone knew what the card was.
Come on.
And then pay-per-view buy was disappointing.
In a way that it would be
very disappointing. In fact, there's plenty of people who lost their jobs over that pay-per-view buy rate.
Yeah, but that was the undercard guy's fault,
Yeah, I know. We're going to go to Jeffrey in New York City. You're first up. What's up, Jeff?
What's going on? I got a question. Just one question this week. I was reading in Luther's book over something that had to do with WrestleMania in the Hogan era, and he said that it was not that Hogan popularized wrestling, it was that the New York media popularized it. It's that they covered Hogan, and because of the New York media, it has such a powerful influence, everyone caught along. Where do you stand on that?
Having lived through that, there's a lot of truth to that. It's not...
has been
Hogan
not doing much.
Hogan was a big drawing card as a wrestler, as a professional wrestler. Okay, but as far as
and then they continue to
and why wrestling got
I guess
what we would call mainstream coverage, that wasn't because of Hulk Hogan's popularity. That was because the media embraced it because of Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T, and Hulk Hogan kind of was one of the great beneficiaries of that. Because he was the big star of that era when everybody embraced it. It wasn't like Hulk Hogan got so popular they had to cover it. It was nothing like that. The media stuff came from Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T, though.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. Okay, all right, that's it.
Okay, we're going to go to Tom in Atlanta. Tom, what's going on?
Do you think Kevin Nash, he currently holds the record for the worst drawing WWE champion, right?
Yes, he does.
Do you think he'll beat any records once he becomes champion? For zero attendance or...
That's going to be interesting. The one thing that they got going that they didn't have when Kevin Nash, I'm trying to answer this seriously. When Kevin Nash was champion, they didn't have this Monday Night Raw that is going to draw just based on the name Raw that they have now. But if you take that away, I think there's a pretty good chance that his numbers will be, if he wins it, will be lower now than they were in 95, yes. If you take away the Monday night number, you just do 3 house shows a week number.
When's your next update on the title history coming up on the Observe?
Maybe this week, if not, I don't know. Maybe this week, though, yeah.
Do you think they plan on bringing any colorful wrestlers from the past for the Intercontinental Battle Royal, like China or Pat Patterson or something?
That actually would be funny if they brought Pat Patterson in for that. I haven't heard. I don't think so. I mean, I haven't heard anything about China. It wouldn't shock me at all. All things considered, for them to bring China back at this point. That would be really scary, though. I don't know. I got my thoughts. If we could actually talk about the Intercontinental deal too.
Just what end, until the major players are out of the major manipulators are out of the top spot. I mean, what's the point?
And the other thing is the major manipulators are not going to lower themselves to that belt, and once you have a belt that the stars don't lower themselves to, what's the point?
Yeah.
What does it matter?
Finally, I was reading from your last installment of the title history. You said that the toughest bouncer contest on that Mr. Teague did that was a work.
I don't know that it was a work, but it was set up for him to win. I guess that means it was a work.
For whose advantage, though?
What's he talking about? The thing that got Mr. T really famous, which was the
TV.
for groom to be like a TV star.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah. It was already up in, it was already planned.
So they had 18 in the back of their mind.
I don't know necessarily they had 18, but they had, somebody spotted him. I think he was bodyguarding at the time for Muhammad Ali. He was bodyguarding for a famous boxer, and he had that look. And everybody, kind of noticed him. And they changed the chains and the mohawk. Nobody had a mohawk in those days. He was pretty buffed,
He had a chain even before he made it big.
Oh yeah. He was. He's got the face. He had a great face. Everybody was scared of him. He looked like the world's meanest bodyguard.
And that was strictly as a vehicle to get him.
So they came up with this world toughest bouncer thing to make him a star, and that was to set him up to whatever we're going to do with him after that. Yeah.
Right. And very quickly on the Confidential show, they said that Wembley was the second highest drawing star next to.
They had to say that.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay, you're welcome. I was kind of bummed they edited that match so much.
Did they actually have obvious cuts?
Well, the match was like 25 minutes, and they showed like 4 minutes total.
Yeah, it was weird because I was.
They had one. They showed about the first 2 minutes, then they made a cut, and then they were in the last 2 minutes.
They did a hell of a cut because I was just over.
It was just a cut, and I was going like, all right, I was kind of in the mood to sit there and watch it. The only thing I got to say is what a pop.
Yeah.
I thought that Hogan Goldberg pop was big when they showed that a couple of weeks ago. Nothing. I can't remember a pop that I've ever seen like that for a wrestling match.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was something. The other thing that was interesting watching it was Bret Hart really. I mean, again, I only saw 4 minutes of it, but boy, it looked like he was totally carrying that match.
Well, I mean, I know Bulldog's dead, but if you really look at the matches throughout Bulldog's career, I mean, he wasn't like a great worker all the time.
No, but he was a very talented guy when he choked. When he was motivated.
Really great match.
Right. No, if he was with a bad opponent, it was bad. Yeah. It wasn't like a guy who, when it was, could have a good match with a bad guy. Yeah. That was like the highlight of his career, though.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. We will go to Jonathan in Savannah. Jonathan, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not too much.
I had a comment, first of all. I want to say that there was a rumor floating around the internet about when Kevin Nash walked with the limo, he stopped halfway to get his hair dyed again.
Oh my God.
But my question with that, I have a couple questions. To go with that, do they realize how bad of a reaction, and not like bad as in like good heat, but bad heat he got on Raw on Monday? I mean, even though they're in Canada, and yeah, they'll probably blame.
They did. They blamed those unappreciative fans who didn't understand how great that segment that really was.
Talking about the Nash
Triple H thing on Monday night.
It went on for I don't know how, 20, 30 minutes. I don't know how long it was, but I mean, it still looks like, it looked like it was in slow motion the whole time.
Yeah, it was really scary. Jonathan, hold on. We'll get back to you right after the break, okay? Okay, you're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez and Figure 4 Weekly. For information on how to get either of these publications, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. We've got all the news updated every morning, actually every afternoon. TV reviews, plus information on the latest issue of Wrestling Observer newsletter that I put out every week, and Figure 4 Weekly that Brian puts out every week. They are the best publications. If you really want to learn about what's going on in wrestling, that's the way to go. Seriously. Let's go back to Jonathan in Savannah. Jonathan, what's going on?
Not much. Dave, I have a couple questions for you. You and Brian. The first one is, why is Jericho wrestling on Heat tonight?
That was just because on that last Monday they didn't have a match for him. They just had him do the highlight of the night deal. So they figured since he's there, he might as well do a wrestling.
When it comes to travel, you're a winner. That's why when you sit behind a crying baby.
Do a wrestling match, so they had him and Hurricane wrestle on Heat.
And then since tomorrow night he's gonna get squashed.
Very might as well do a wrestling match, so they had him and Hurricane wrestle on Heat.
And then since tomorrow night he's gonna get squashed.
I think so, yeah.
Got something good with.
So, and he has to. I mean, think about it. Nash is in the main event on the next pay-per-view. You really can't do any other finish.
Yeah. And I have another question about if Big Show has so much heat on him for dropping Rey Mysterio, like he did, or swinging him and dropping him, not protecting him, why does he still have a championship match?
Because that's what they were building towards, and they didn't want to change the storyline. And you know what? If they would have switched that, then it would have really been stupid. Because at least, because then like Rey Mysterio would have been hurt with like no purpose whatsoever. I mean, not that. Like this is a good purpose, but you know, it's like to me, like I don't like it when they punish somebody by changing their storylines and having things not make sense. And even when it's Big Show, I mean, there's nobody else ready. I mean, they could put Benoit in there, but it's not. To me, when Benoit gets a shot, which he needs to get like win after win after win after win after win, somehow break him out of the pack. Because this Chris Benoit, where he is right now, yeah, of course he's gonna have a great match with whomever the champion is, Lesnar or whatever. But there's not going to be any sole interest in it because how he's been portrayed lately.
Okay, I got a question then.
Yes.
Big Show has his pay-per-view match on Sunday or whatever. Is it next Sunday?
Next Sunday.
Okay. I'm presuming he's going to lose.
I'm presuming too.
So what do they do the next Thursday?
In what sense?
Well, who's Brock's next challenger? I don't think it would make sense.
Well, they've got the one thing that now. Okay, they've got 2 months, and I think the ice Kurt.
Oh, 2 months. They're going with that one.
Yeah. I mean,
they're counting on a dude that they don't even know if he's going to be back in 2 months.
Yeah.
They're going to rush that rematch to pay-per-view 2 months down the road.
That's right, without the long build that match should deserve, yes.
And they're still going to go with the split pay-per-view. That's actually the most absurd of all, but...
Well, they still are today, yes. Unless they've changed in the last, 2 days.
Well, they're doomed.
I'm just trying to have as much fun as possible watching this happen.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's going to happen, and there's, it's not like WCW where, every week we, kept trying to, they're not going to listen to anything we say.
Actually, you did.
What?
I tried. Keep talking about how you were sad at the end.
I'll be sad at the end now, but I'm just going to have as much fun as possible until it ends, so then when the sadness comes, at least I haven't been sad for 4 straight years.
That's right.
Because it's going to be a long time. This isn't going to be a 1-year deal.
I predict 10.
It might be.
They're still laying guys off now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have so much cash that they can still slowly burn.
Yeah, but they're not going to burn it slowly once Vince is out of the picture. Because what will happen is it will go down and go down and go down, and then finally, the coup will happen, and Vince will really give up the reins, and then it'll go to Hunter and Stephanie. And when it goes to Hunter and Stephanie, it will not go down slowly. It will go down quickly at that point.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jonathan?
I had a quick question about what were your, what's your quick, if I can say real quick, what about on the John Cena piece last night on Confidential, and also, what is the outlook for Ultimate Dragon?
The outlook for Ultimate Dragon is not good, and for the John Cena piece, I was laughing, so I guess it was good. Yeah. I don't know, what do you think of the John Cena piece?
I'm sure that
I might
if you would ask for
venture to that. I tried about the same as your reaction. I don't know, it's kind of goofy, but I guess whatever. I don't know.
I don't know if it was like main event heel, but I was entertained. I was entertained with him and Josh, because Josh is like so uncool, you know what I mean?
With Josh, I do that thing at the end.
Oh, God, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Alan in Deerfield Beach. Alan, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
I was appalled by the way Hogan was talking. He had to stick in little cheap shots at Randy Savage. That's how I felt.
Really? I thought that Hulk Hogan was just being far more honest than Hulk Hogan usually is. I mean, I don't think they were cheap shots. I think that it's just what it was. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, it's like, like a lot of people are going like, oh my God, they buried Randy Savage, they buried Lex Luger. To me, the truth buried those guys. It's not like there was there's nothing that was said about either of those guys that wasn't true.
Yeah, I mean, what is Hogan going to go on there and say Savage was such a great husband and
Yeah, I mean, it was like
obviously that thing fell apart and
it was a storybook marriage. Like, Hogan, that was the deal, and he knows. I mean, his wife was friends with Elizabeth.
I know.
And he was friends with Elizabeth.
I mean, they were talking about the death. They weren't talking about actually the marriage.
Oh, yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. In the storyline, and they couldn't avoid it because her marriage to Savage was so public. And they couldn't avoid talking about that subject.
Right, so nobody really knew about the trouble behind the scenes that much, right?
I mean, I think everyone in wrestling knew.
Right, I'm talking about fans.
General public, it's never really been brought up. But I don't see how you avoid the subject when you're talking about her life.
I also wanted to ask you about in Blasie's book. Have you read it yet?
Yeah, I read it. I liked it a lot.
It was great. And the Killer Khan story about the ankle, is that true?
No, he had that story wrong. You're right. Yeah. He said that the Killer Khan. Gotta write that down. Thank you very much.
Killer Khan said actually that I accidentally dropped on him.
That was the storyline at the time. Actually, Andre got out of bed, fell down, and that's the truth. Yeah, in his hotel room, and Killer Khan was the guy he was working with, so they decided to credit to Killer Khan, and that made Killer Khan's career for several years.
But when he wrestled that night, the ankle was already broken, or what?
And no one really knows when it got hurt because Andre drank so much, he was so numb, it was very. It may have happened in the ring with Killer Khan for all we know, but I think the thing was, I don't think so, though. I think that he just got out of bed wrong, and, without drank, he could do a lot of damage.
So, I mean, maybe aggravated in the ring, is that possible?
Oh, yeah, it's possible.
Okay, and also when I asked you about Blasie's book, obviously he didn't like Johnny Valentine.
Well, he wasn't the only one.
Really?
Oh, God, no, Johnny Valentine was not well liked among wrestlers. He was very feared among wrestlers and extremely respected among wrestlers, but not well liked. He was a very moody guy who kept to himself. What Blassie said about Valentine was consistent with everything I've heard about Valentine.
what a strange way to gain respect.
What?
Really hitting people in a fake match.
Huh? People.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of guys got. How a lot of guys got respect in the '50s. Don't ask me why. Because you remember, in that era, not like this era. The guys that were real shooters were the ones that had the respect. And quite frankly, what did it matter if they were real shooters or not? It wasn't a real shoot.
Well, it kind of mattered, I guess.
Well, it mattered because it mattered to the promoters, and because the real shooters could take advantage of you if they wanted to. And some of them did too.
Yeah, Rogers that bad as a shooter? I mean,
Rogers was not well regarded as a shooter. Everybody, no. I mean, Rogers was a big, well-conditioned guy who was known for picking on guys who were smaller than him, and the top guys all hated him because when it came to the top guys, Rogers was the exact opposite. So Rogers, I guess, would be more of a bully than anything else.
he would try things in certain matches, right?
But never with anybody who was tough. Only with guys who were like 185 pounds. And then he was like, yeah. I mean, like,
he never tried to double cross Dez.
Oh, please. He was scared to death of Blue Dez. And he told me that himself.
They became best friends.
No, they were enemies until right before Rogers died. They met in New York and they kind of hashed it out. And they were on decent terms when Rogers died. But, up until a year before Rogers' death, every time I talked to Dez, nothing but negative about Rogers. Other than that, he always thought that Rogers was a great worker.
Right. Yeah. It's about, you said Johnny Valentine. I'll let you go, but Johnny Valentine and McDaniels were best friends, right?
I don't know if they were friends or not. I know that they worked together a million times, but I don't know.
Not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I know that they had a famous fight in a hotel room, so I don't know what happened there, but I know that there was one. Let's go to Matthew in Boston. Matthew, what's going on?
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing very well.
A quick mention. I went right into this. Maybe I didn't. I was at the Backlash pay-per-view. They were actually doing something in the last 2 or 3 pay-per-views I had seen. The checking sign at the door. You really had a security guy before you even walked through the turnstile, before you even gave the person a ticket, actually looking at every single sign as part of it.
I've seen that happen at, or heard about that happening at other TV events.
That's something new that they're doing.
I know that when every time I've been to a TV event, before TV goes on the air, they do this thing, and it's like, we want to see your signs. Everyone that's here, show your signs, and they show your signs and cheer and stand up, and then they go out there and they start stealing them. So taking all the ones that say WCW was really good.
Question. Tito Ortiz, Liddell, anything happening with that? Or?
I've heard rumors this week that something has happened with that, but I don't know for sure. I mean, the rumor is that they may fight in November if Liddell beats Randy Couture on June 6th.
Because I was hoping that maybe, isn't there supposed to be September 1 supposed to be in Boston maybe at that time?
They've canceled the Boston. That was the original idea, but unless Dana White changed his mind since Dana White kind of only wants to do 3 sites now. He wants to do the Uncasville, Connecticut, Atlantic City, and Las Vegas because he thinks that when they go to new places, the crowds are not that smart and he doesn't like crowd reaction. So I think he just wants to keep going back to places where they have big smart crowds. Okay.
Oh, did you go to a break or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can I hold for a break? I had a couple more.
Okay, sure. You can hold on. We'll be back for more. You guys listen to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And we're going to go back to Matt in Boston. Matt, what's going on?
Yeah, a quick comment on the confidential piece I sent. I just got my Observer newsletter, G-Plug.
Okay.
I'm assuming everything with him, with great interest in seeing the show. And I thought it was very forthright and very well done. One of the better pieces I've seen in a long time. And I thought Mr. McMahon came off as very humble and kind of very honest, probably one of the more honest, and he was kind of almost seemed emotional in his interview, you know, his little comments there near the end about like why do all these young people, why do these people, why do they lose the spotlight and the star things, they seem to, you know, get in trouble. Or,
it's a tough transition, you know, to make, and that's why these guys keep coming back when they retire, because it's just, you know what, you know, Vince again, you know, because Vince is an actor. Okay, and that doesn't mean that he's always acting, but 95%. But most of the time But I thought the same thing at the end of the show when Vince did that thing where he just goes, "Well, I'm not mad, well, I kind of am mad." I thought that was like this is the closest thing to real that I've seen Vince do in a long time.
that's true. He kind of had to.
I thought that he was just frustrated and sad and mad and you know everything all rolled into one.
Didn't you find that him kind of something else earlier in the call? I thought he was like kind of putting down Luger. I thought he kind of like built him up a little bit.
I didn't think he built him up.
You know, he was high. He was, you know, one of the top people, and I'm like, you know, after what you wrote and you know what we've known before about him, and you know, running, you know, when he left him the first time to go to, you know,
I thought that there was a little bit of. I finally got my revenge on Lex Luger in that piece, but the truth allowed him to attack without stretching, and there was no stretch, but I did think that, you know,
really trashing him, you know.
I think that I don't know that they would have, again, we'll never know, but I don't know that if it had been somebody else that was arrested with all those drugs, that they would have brought up the drugs quite as honestly, let's say. As someone who, you know, Vince clearly, you know, hasn't liked for 8 years and didn't make amends with, unlike other people they didn't like.
A terrible way to get revenge on somebody.
Yeah, but hey, how many times do we have to watch that Survivor Series thing over and over and over?
You know, but can you really be so upset with somebody that did he feel by having all these drugs that he was getting ready to come back into the mainstream again?
I think he believed in his heart of hearts that. I think that Luger and Buff Bagwell, who were best friends, I think that they've never gotten, either of them have ever gotten it through their heads, no matter how many times they've been fired, how many times they haven't been wanted. I think even to this day they think that wrestling is all about who has the best body. And Lex Luger, even at his age, you know, had a good body, although, you know, I think he packed on a little bit too much weight, you know, at the end. But you know, and on the last tour, the last time I saw him, I should say. But I think that they just thought that we are stars and we have a good body, and sooner or later he's got to give me a call. And I think that's why Lex got huge, because he knows Vince is a mark for big bodies, which in fact he is. But he probably thought that. But I think the one thing that Vince is also a mark for, you know, getting revenge for people who've done wrong on him, and I think that motivation was a little bit stronger. Plus, the other problem with Lex was, and I think that all things being equal, this was the deciding factor, is that Lex stinks. If Lex didn't stink, I think that Vince very possibly would have still brought him back. But that he stinks made that decision a lot easier.
Did Luger maybe have the back of his mind thinking his best friend Sting possibly coming in June, that maybe he's going to put a good word for him?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. Yes. That's
who knows? He might have brought him back for maybe. You never know.
No, you don't know. when I had heard the rumors that they were talking to Luger, which in fact were not true, there was nothing to them at all. But when I had heard that, it was like I thought they're out of their mind, but I believe it because they're out of their mind. But as it turned out, they weren't talking to him at all. It's like I can believe anything. It's like when someone brought up China today. You know what I mean? It's like I don't understand what you can do, but would I be shocked? No, I'd be saying, well, nothing's going to surprise me.
Is there one guy that would surprise you?
What?
Is there one guy that would surprise you right now?
No, maybe Bruno Sammartino. That'd be about it.
He just had surgery, didn't he not?
Yeah, he sure did.
And a quick note, when somebody was mentioning about Johnny Valentine, I used to do some work for Killer Kowalski, and he used to tell us a lot of stories about Johnny Valentine in the ring and how stiff he was, and one of his first matches against him, and the guy would hit him with forearms and forearm shots and knock the hell out of him, and he just gave it right back to him, and he learned his respect that way in the ring. Obviously, Kowalski being a bigger, just a bigger man as he was able to do that, but as the other people said, a lot of people didn't like him because he was so stiff, so hard in the ring.
I remember as a kid, I watched Johnny Valentine wrestle a guy named El Bengali, who was a smaller Mexican wrestler who wrestled in Los Angeles. It was like a TV squash match.
There's the one where Serena comes out.
And he got him over and started doing those.
So, just burying the whole idea of feuding the story thing in the first place. Now, if you lost
The Valentine thing, the same thing that Greg used to do, where you kind of drape him over and you just kind of unload on him. And I mean, that guy was like, kind of unload on him. And I mean, that guy was like, oh my God, he'd never been hit like that in Mexico or in the United States. And I mean, he submitted from, he just hit hard.
Okay, thanks for your time. Have a good show.
Okay, you're very welcome.
You know what I watched the other day, speaking of Lou Thesz?
Yes.
That Flair Steamboat match from the Hunter DVD. It's like
The Nashville match.
Yeah. And they had 3 judges.
Right.
And Flair's selling like crazy for the first 15 minutes, and all 3 just give it to Flair. And Flair's just crap out of him the second 15 minutes, and it's a split. Lou Thesz stopped at Steamboat took the second 15 minutes. I was like, that's not bad.
I remember whenever they did judges, it was never good. They just never got that one right. Let's go to James in Seattle. James, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going, guys? One of the guys way back there was talking about the horrible reaction that Nash was getting to be. First it was apathy, and then it was booze. And that's something I've noticed a lot, too. Not just with Nash, but Cena's getting popped. The crowd has turned on Lesnar before they were sort of turning on him at Backlash. The Guerreros, total cheaters, are getting pushed as faces. They're getting face pops. Is this like, do you think this is a backlash, just bad products, and the fans are just sort of rebelling and saying we're not?
No, I think the fans for the last 5-6 years have been cheering whoever they felt like it.
Do you think that this is something that Vince is going to have to adapt to? Because he used to.
I think that they started adapting to it years and years ago. And the first time they adapted to it was when they turned Rock heel. Because believe me, in their minds, Rock was a babyface, and Rock was going to be a babyface for 10 years. And he was going to carry the company as a babyface in 2000. I think that was their timetable. And when he just got booed and booed because they shoved him too hard, when they turned him heel because the fans demanded it, to me that was the example of there's another one. I remember when Shawn Michaels was a heel and he just kept getting cheered, even though they had all these plans for Shawn as a heel. They turned him anyway because it was just like, we're not going to have a heel who gets cheered.
I agree with those examples, but I don't say that they have entirely adapted to that, though, because
they don't know, but sometimes they have to a degree.
The Hunter, I don't even know what kind of reaction he gets.
Hunter gets more cheers than booze. He gets that superstar. He gets the superstar pop.
Yeah, but they're still going with Nash, and they're still going with
Nash,
Steiner in a pay-per-view title match two in a row, despite the.
But that was because of how things were booked. Okay, you gotta remember, the first one, he had not gotten booed. He was over like crazy until he had the first match. And then in the first match, it didn't work out so well, but they had already booked that DQ finish to build up the rematch. So, at that point, it was kind of like, okay, we're already caught. We'll go till then. And then they haven't pushed him since that second match.
Yeah, it would have been really hard to call an audible.
In the middle of that match, it could have been done, but no, it would have been really hard. You're right, because it's Scott, and he would have, you could have called on audible. Yeah, he would have killed the man who suggested it.
It almost seems though like the crowd is starting to appreciate the better workers, the Guerreros.
I don't know. Sometimes, yeah.
But I think it's people that entertain them.
Yeah, I think it's
with good wrestling or funny or a good rap. I mean, John Cena is not like the best worker in the world. No. But he comes out, he does his rap, and everybody loves it, and, he's entertaining.
Yeah. And you got, I loved it when what was the rhyme he used called Benoit Dynamite Ripoff?
Yeah, that was a few weeks ago, yeah.
Not many people probably got that, but it was funny to me anyway.
Yeah.
I had another question, too. I want to talk about the Great Muta for a sec. I've been trying to find this out, and I can't find it anywhere, but he switches his moves so that his whole persona with Cage Muto turns into the Great Muta.
Yeah.
What is the storyline justification for why the switch happened?
Theoretically, it's like a different character. He plays the Great Muta character is a heel character who just punches, kicks, and does juice to get into the match.
Like a Foley, like a persona kind of thing, or?
Similar, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the one other question I had is I've heard that Muto has an absolutely filthy mouth, and I had heard a rumor a couple times that when he was in WCW, he was doing like a guest commentary spot, and Shivani called a move wrong, and Muta corrected him in Japanese using a I don't think I can say it without getting kicked off the phone. But I don't know. If this really happens, you probably know what I'm talking about.
I don't know that story.
I know Muta likes to say the F word a lot in his matches.
Well, this was a different F word. This was a 3-letter F word.
Yeah.
And I heard that, Shivani called the move wrong, and Muta was just like, well, actually, it was a something or other. Yeah.
You know what, though? He learned English from wrestlers. Think about that. So you're going to have a different language.
That may have been the only word he learned.
I mean, that may have been the only way he could have expressed himself in the language, because that's all he knew.
I remember that they were talking to him, they had an interview with him on where they said, is anybody in WCW you want to fight? He was like, oh, yes, I want to fight a bald head guy. Goldberg? Oh, yeah, Goldberg.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay, very well. Let's go to Dan in Catskill, New York.
Yes, hello. I'm a little angry tonight because ever since Goldberg debuted, he's been bashed by the internet journalists for his work ethic, on Backlash. I didn't think it was that bad compared to the stuff he's done in the past. And also, Rock wasn't helping.
Yes.
And people were comparing it to, Steiner and No Way Out, and I don't even think it was close to that. And now, they're teaming with Christian in a feud, and I think there's like some, anti-Semitism going on here, if you know what I mean.
Oh, please.
You were good there for a while.
Yeah, let's go to Jeff in Prospect, Connecticut.
So is Brock Lesnar versus Big Show going to be a stretcher match?
Yes.
You think they might surpass the precedent set by previous stretcher matches such as Andre the Giant and Kid versus Killer Khan or El Gigante?
Remember Sid Vicious and El Gigante? Did you ever see the stretcher match, Brian?
No, but someone mentioned that match when this was being booked.
Okay, Sid Vicious and El Gigante had a stretcher match. I was at this match, and Sid Vicious was supposed to lose because he was going to go to WWE. It was his last match in, and he would not ride the stretcher, so he just didn't have this. I don't even remember if he got pinned. He just kind of lost.
I think it ended with Gigante got the pin and then one-man gang with the stretcher.
Yeah, it was lame.
What's next? I got to do another scaffold match?
Yeah. There was a match once. This is lame, too. It was Bob Backlund and Sergeant Slaughter in a stretcher match. I don't remember what city it was in. It was either New York or Philly, though, because I saw it. And Bob Backlund beat him with a chicken wing, okay? And then Slaughter went on a stretcher, and it was like, to me, it's like, how do you go out on a stretcher with a dislocated shoulder? He had to hold on for a long time, but it's like, you just got to do something. It's like, to me, for a stretcher match, you got to hit him with a chair or pile drive him. You can't use a chicken wing.
You have to go to a break?
I have to go to a break.
Put me on hold for a minute. I have another question.
Sure can. Okay, we'll be back right after this. You listen to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
Everybody has issues
Hey,
with
welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer. Here's with Brian Alvarez, speaker for weekly. We're going to go back to Jeff in Connecticut. Jeff, on.
Someone was posting columns on OneWrestling.com claiming to be a WWE worker. He was the worker. It's just mysteriously stuff. Was that real or was that just a ploy?
I'm under the impression that was real.
You have any idea who it could have been?
Oh, yeah, but I'm not about to say it because he's been punched enough as it is.
Because there was a lot of speculation. It could have been like Christian or Goldust.
It wasn't either.
No. I think they even stopped it and then they just said that. Were they getting a lawsuit or?
I don't know. To me, I don't understand how they ever posted it in the first place, because it was like when they first posted it, they didn't know if it was real or not, and it's like, you don't know if it's real. Like, if you know it's real, like if someone who I knew would send it and goes, and I knew who it was, don't use my name because it will end my career, I would post something like that and just say, look, it's a real guy. But at the beginning, and I think they probably did know soon enough, pretty quickly. But at the beginning, they did not know, and actually, they claimed that they didn't know all along. And to me, it's like if you don't know, that's sort of semi-fraud to me.
Yeah, and why have they been having Lawler wrestle so much, like within the past 5 months? I mean, he doesn't wrestle all the time, but he's wrestled more in the past 5 or 6 months than he has in the past.
I think it's just a matter of
done the Jim Ross angle 35 times.
Yeah, well, you know what it is because Jim Ross, the segment that they did in was it Tulsa, Oklahoma City over Christmas, did like a real big quarter hour and got this immense pop. And at that point, it's like to me, it was really wonderful, and then you never do it again. But to them, it's like anything that's good, you do it until it's bad. So that just guaranteed we would see, more angles with Jim Ross. Lawler, makes sense for Lawler to wrestle.
You have the 55-year-old Lawler doing this, then Robbie got Jericho versus Hurricane headlining Heat.
But it did the story. They fit the storyline, and they're writing stories. I don't have a problem with that actually, even though it wasn't much of a match.
Yeah, I just have one more question. Is there any chance of Mick Foley ever making a comeback, coming back to the WWE?
Oh yeah, of course there's a chance. I would be surprised if it doesn't happen at some point. As far as being around, as far as in the ring, maybe for a match or two, I cannot imagine him going back to wrestle full time.
Before the Katie thing, that kind of got him mad.
No. But he was going to come back to do Fight This, I think. And he just decided not to do it because he figured there's nothing. He didn't want to say anything good, so why go on their show? Okay, we got to get out of here, okay? All right, you listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
None of us is going to be on these parts of the world.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Are you ready? Let's get it on. Okay, welcome to the second hour here of Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, and I'm going under the assumption that we're not going to have Jeff Jarrett on during this hour, just because we haven't heard back. But if we do, if he's here, he'll be here. We certainly have more than enough phone calls. We've got a full bank of phone calls. When someone hangs up, you can join in at 1-800-878-PLAY and get in on all this action. Brian, a lot of people talking a confidential piece.
I'm not surprised.
But nobody watches that show. Maybe they watched this week.
I'm going to be actually interested to see what that rating was.
Yeah.
Rating the last few weeks has just been atrocious.
The week that they had Bob Costas on, the first quarter hour was tremendous. And then the rest of the show was atrocious. But most other weeks it's just been atrocious.
Yeah, like 600,000 viewers at the end.
There was the week before last.
There were 5 or something.
No, 343,000 viewers in the last quarter hour when they showed the Jesse Ventura Kurganic match, I think. Some number like that, whatever it was. So anyway, we are going to go to Jay and Harriman, New York. Jay, what's going on?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going really good.
A couple questions for you. First, do you think Vince will ever go back to the NWO angle? And if he does, will bring Scott Hall back in?
God, I hope not. And Scott Hall back in. Somehow I have this feeling that someday that will happen again, but I don't see the NWO angle ever again.
Maybe he can do that when he brings the Intercontinental title back. He's all at once.
China can go out.
Invasion too.
Yeah.
And my other question was about Barry Windham.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what led to his initial leaving the WWF back in 1985.
I don't remember. I don't know if he got burned out on the schedule or what, but he just came. He was more of an NWA type wrestler, so maybe I guess as a single wrestler he wasn't going to get a push as a single in WWF, and perhaps his father convinced him to come back. He's Dusty Rhodes. I don't know. I don't remember the story on that actually.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.
Okay, very welcome. We should probably head to a break right now. A couple of notes actually I want to make mention of before we go. A couple of deaths in wrestling over the last week. Kurt von Poppenheim. Did you hear anything about that in Oregon?
I just saw a little story on it.
Yeah, he was a star in the 50s in Oregon, and Dwayne Allen, who I remember watching when I was a kid, wrestling out of Los Angeles, passed away a couple of days ago at the age of 65. Kurt von Poppenheim, I think, was like 89 years old. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
And it's like, they're not going to be.
Hey, welcome back to the Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4. We're here for 2 hours every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 to 7 Pacific Time. We're going to go to Savannah, Georgia, and Chris. Chris, what's going on?
Not much, fellas. How are y'all doing?
Doing good.
Okay. And I can understand with regards to this confidential piece last night. I'm looking at Vince McMahon, and he's saying, you know, hopefully some good can come out of Lex Luger. Hopefully people in our industry, he didn't say workers or the boys, people in our industry can learn from this and take something positive away from that. And the feeling I got from that comment was it was the most disingenuous thing I'd ever, one of the most disingenuous things I've ever heard out of his mouth. First of all, whatever, what does he care about that, really, I mean, if festering itself all in the
he cares. He doesn't. You think he likes all these deaths that come on in wrestling? I think it's not the kind of publicity that they want.
No, absolutely not. But on the same hand, with such a high percentage of his own employees subjecting themselves to that same situation and set of circumstances, don't you think there's some proactive steps that could be taken in the future to prevent this? That, he's aware of this, that's been going on in the past, and, I mean, the whole thing in the early 90s, and it seemed like they were moving away from it, and now they're back to it.
I think that he wants it both ways. I think he wants the wrestler's fault when something bad happens, but he doesn't want to do anything that would hurt business that would change that, and I don't think he wants to do, obviously, what you're talking about, mainly, okay, the things that they can do. When it comes to guys who have been loaded, and then sometimes it takes a while, but by and large, they do get rid of those guys.
I mean, he just hired Steiner, for God's sake.
I think Vince's deal is, I don't think that he thinks that steroids are going to kill anybody.
No, he doesn't think it's steroids.
Yeah,
I think that they're worried.
Recreational drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he sees a bunch of enormous guys who potentially could be on something, and he doesn't seem to think that that's a problem. But all these enlarged hearts are just,
Yeah, I know. I think that they're in, I think that they're in denial of the fact that steroids are dangerous, and obviously Vince is because, obviously Vince is. What can I say?
Obvious, clearly, and I don't want to even venture a percentage of the boys that are on steroids because, I'm not actually privy to that knowledge, but I would venture a guess as to say a large percentage are. And if he doesn't want this publicity and potential mainstream media backlash, don't you think he could and would do something about it?
I don't think he will do something about it unless forced. And when he's forced, it will be too late. Because it'll be damage control by then.
That's the way it seems everything.
It is. It always is. That's the pattern of Vince. The pattern of Vince is that he's real good at, after getting knocked down, in most cases, this one this time may not be the last example.
David all the time, David and Goliath.
But he's good at crawling back and building himself back up after being knocked down. But when he gets up, he walks headlong into problems because he starts thinking that he's Buddy Rogers and he's, and he's real and this and that, and he gets arrogant and he makes elementary mistakes and he gets hit in the head again and then he's back down. I think that, what we're seeing now is, another round of that, and, back in the late 80s, I mean, my God, if you really look at it, I mean, we all saw it coming. He got warned by everyone, and he walked right into it anyway. And he'll walk into it again.
I mean, the thing about that whole piece was, it just really, I thought the piece was well done, really well put together, slick WWE material. But the fact that, and I thought Vince was being as open and honest as Vince McMahon possibly can.
Yeah.
But he was completely disingenuous on the other hand, too. And,
Well, disingenuous isn't the word. The word is that Vince never takes credit or never, I don't say takes credit, is not the right word, but he never accepts blame for those things because he rationalizes it having nothing to do with him because he didn't tell anyone to do any of that stuff. They chose to do it on their own. And I think that, it's, and I don't think he's very good at taking blame. I mean, just, look at every couple of months when we have these stockholders things, and then they start talking about, the reason the ratings are down, and it's 9/11, and it's the war, and it's this, and it's that. And it's full of it every time. But, they never go in there and they say, we just, you know what I mean? There's never, that acknowledgement that what we're doing, what we're doing isn't working, or that we need to make big changes. I think that there's this poll that they're doing, but the poll that they're doing now, is to justify. I mean, the way it's written, you can see the way the answers are, and the way it's written, it's to justify that we're right all along. It's not to learn.
No, absolutely not. Not taking all of the polls. It's been totally slanted.
Right.
And that's all you can really say about it. But, with the whole thing with the 911 call on there, and Lex Luke, it was really, really eerie listening to him,
that was scary.
The fact that, I don't know what I'm doing, she's not breathing, and while that might have made an excellent piece of business, is that entirely appropriate? I don't know,
but I've seen it on shows. So I can't, when Nicole Simpson, was beaten up by OJ, those 911 calls, I heard that call 50 times.
But does that make it any more right?
I'm not saying, but you're expecting Vince to have higher standards than a television news show. You're expecting wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the deal. We got to get running, okay?
All right, Dave. Thanks for your time.
Okay, you're very welcome.
The thing about percentages of guys using steroids in WWE is, I was just watching a show. I was watching a show last week. Actually, it was tape, and there's someone on there that I also saw on WWE this week. So I guarantee that nobody would ever think this person was on steroids, and they had a totally different body.
Oh, I've seen some guys in OVW change in a week.
Oh yeah, well, when Dean Hill, the former chief of police, is pointing out that you have a different body this week. That's not the guy you want doing it.
Yeah. Let's go to John in Poughkeepsie. John, what's going on?
How's it going?
Going pretty good.
I'm kind of down on the WWE product right now. I think Raw is atrocious. The only thing good on that show is Chris Jericho. But what is your opinion on a promotion like Ring of Honor?
I enjoy Ring of Honor a lot. I just watched the tape of the Paul London American Dragon match, and that was
About that, I ordered it the other day.
It's a really good match. I didn't think it was the best match of the year, but it's a really good match. They had a match on that same show with AJ Styles and Amazing Red against Mark and Jay Briscoe, and AJ Styles and Amazing Red are such a great tag team. But I enjoy Ring of Honor from start to finish, except for when they have the women's matches or some of the garbage matches that I don't really know why they put on the show. But I did 80% of the shows I like.
Okay. I was at one of their shows last at that tournament to crown a champion. And you remember the Amazing Red versus Loki match?
Oh my God! You know what? That turned the first round. So that was the show that you went to. That was one of the best shows of any year. They had 6 or 7 matches that were just really great.
Yeah.
It was 100 degrees in that building, but it was just amazing, that show.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to the next show at the end of this month. And just one final question. Why do you think Tom Zink is in the show?
Don't know. When there's a news story that involves Tom Zink or something, I'll put him on, or at some point, maybe even if there isn't, at some point. I don't know. All right, Dave. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Bye. Bye. Let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? Got a question about Sting. I understand 3 to 4 weeks after Judgment Day. Any sure to that?
Probably not. But I don't know.
Does he have a contract sign?
No.
But from what I hear, isn't he made some kind of agreement that this next pay-per-view is about WWE pay-per-view?
Yes, we told Andrew McManus that this last tour would be the last tour he'd be going on, and he did tell Andrew McManus he was going to WWE, but the WWE people don't think they're close to a deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. And confidential. One thing that's
bothering me is the fact that he went through that thing with the 93,000 at the Silverdome, even though you say it's 78. They had mentioned it again that it was 93.
They'll mention it forever.
Why is that though?
Because that's their history.
Okay. Where did you get 78 though from? That's what I'm just kind of curious on.
The promoter of the event. I think you can go through this one.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just kind of curious.
The promoter of the event, the settle sheet that comes from the event. I mean, that's just a number. What can I say? I mean, almost every attendance figure, okay, of a WWE live event, almost, there's some exceptions, point of a pay-per-view, until they went public, is a fake number. Okay. And it's weird because in some cases it'd be, they'll sell out a building with 16,000 people and they'll announce 17,500. It's like, what's the point? But they do. And I don't know why. I mean, I have asked, and the answer to that question is, in fact, Vince McMahon gave me this answer when I asked him once about, why, and he said, because anything that's on television is part of the entertainment aspect of the presentation. So if it's on television, he considers it entertainment, not necessarily news.
And then they wait.
What?
All these guys weigh more than they actually do.
Or less.
Inflate them a little bit, put them down a little bit.
Yeah, whatever fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing on Luger, they made it seem like that was kind of a scary call, like you were saying. He didn't seem like he wanted to help her at all.
Oh, he wanted to. He was scared to death. I mean, your girlfriend's dying right in front of you.
I'd go over there and help.
Well, I'm sure he tried, but he didn't know what to do, and I think that feeling of helplessness was not a good feeling when your girlfriend's dying right in front of you.
Made it seem like he was guilty.
He's guilty of something, but I don't know what. Anyway, we gotta go to a break right now. We'll be back right after this. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. If you're looking for information on either of those publications, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com, and there's previews of this current issue that comes out tomorrow, both Wrestling Observer and Figure 4. A lot of stuff on Lex Luger and Elizabeth. Tons of stuff, actually. On both publications. We're going to go to Kyle in St. Paul. Kyle, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Going really good.
Good, glad to hear that. First off, just quickly, I want to know, did the K1 response outweigh the XWF? I didn't see anything in the Observer this week.
Very barely, yes.
Okay.
But it's like, one is more than 0, 9 is like, 9 is more than 5. I mean, it's literally, I don't think anyone bought either of those shows.
I bought the K1 show, I just haven't had a chance to watch it.
I heard someone bought the XWF show.
Yeah, well, I think I got a few responses to the XWF, but I got a few more to the K1. I bought the K1. I thought it was all right. Not great or anything.
No, it wasn't anything special. I thought the chyrons and the graphics and all that stuff looked really good. That stuff was sharp, but
yeah,
the fighting wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Back to Broken Hearts, we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. I can totally understand why Bret Hart would have a negative reaction to that book. I mean, who wants it out that their family was so poor you couldn't afford socks for the youngest brother?
Yeah.
That made them look awful. I wouldn't want them writing that about my family either.
Well, it's a rags to riches story.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
You can say that because Bret's going to write similar stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would bet that Bret isn't that hard on his family. His family and his dad.
He won't be hard on them. No. Martha kind of thought she married into the Addams family, and she did, and Bret, Bret will not be that hard on his family. Only on some members of his family.
Right, exactly. What about the part with Austin where she wrote that Owen didn't hurt Austin and that he was either just trying to get out of work or covering an earlier injury?
I think what we kind of think is that that's what Owen told her.
Okay.
Because she's adamant about it, I mean, it's not true, but I think she believes it.
She doesn't watch wrestling. Has anybody ever sat her down and showed her the tape?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that she believes he went in, and he did. He did go in. His neck was hurting him before that move, but that move, boy, it did him no good.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they could have had him work on TV for those 3 months before, or 3 months afterwards, he would have been.
Oh, God. They were just sending from doctor to doctor, hoping some doctor would clear him. Yeah, because every doctor was saying, you're done, and he ended up coming back and having a lot of good years.
Right.
But yeah.
So you did see that Real Sports thing on Outdoor, huh?
Oh my God.
Now, is Tough Man worse than pro wrestling then?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought Tough Man was worse than pro wrestling. Because I thought he came off worse than, like a Herb Abrams type of promoter, he didn't come off worse than him.
Right.
But, Vince McMahon type promoter, he came off way worse than Vince McMahon.
Yeah, he just looked awful.
Yeah, they just nailed. God, he came off so bad. Yeah, they had the thing where they show a clip of a guy and he died in the ring from a blow. Okay, and they go in there and they go, they have like someone out there on a tape, I think the brother of the guy that died, going like, they didn't have a doctor, they only had a chiropractor, right? And then Artur goes, that's not true. We had a doctor. There he is. And they check high, and they find out that the guy was a chiropractor. They just catch this guy in like the most ridiculous lies.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember a time one of Brad Kohler's shows here in Minneapolis a year and a half ago, and he had Care 11, the local NBC affiliate, coming and doing a story on it. And of course, they interviewed him ahead of time, and he's like, "Yeah, we always have a doctor right here in the crowd, and here, and he's paid, and he's always on attendance." And sure enough, that night, a guy breaks his leg. The guy had him in a leg lock, and he tried to kick out of it, kicked his own leg and broke it, which was like the sickest thing I've ever seen. And sure enough, no doctor was there with the TV cameras filming all of this, and they